Hello, everybody. Sorry, a little technical delay there. My name is David Williams. You can see my handsome face on your screen in front of you. I'm president of my own little company called David T. Williams and Associates. I'm in Commerce City, Colorado, which is by the airport, Denver Airport. There's my email right in front of you. I'm highlighting it with my cursor there, and there's my phone number. So we don't have time for a question and answer session, but if you would please, if you have a question, please note my email and send it to me. Or if you maybe have a situation, a personal situation that might be of interest to me too, and just let me know, and I will gladly reply to you. So I'm trying to cursor down. There we go. Little delay there. Okay, a little bit about me. I'm David Williams again, DPE, CFN. If you're interested in what these letters mean, just send me an email. I got a bachelor's and master's in environmental civil engineering from UC Davis. Got a PhD in river mechanics, Colorado State University. A little bit about my work history here. I was an airborne combat engineer, 7th Special Forces Group during Vietnam. And then I was also a U.S. Army Corps of Engineers as a civilian at the Hydrologic Engineering Center, Nashville and Baltimore District Corps of Engineers, and also Engineering Research and Development Center. We used to be Waterways Experiment Station West. So I'm also president and co-founder of West Consultants, which is a nationally known 40-person engineering firm related to water resources. And about 10, 15 years ago, I sold that to my junior partner and went out on my own again. So I've taught engineering and computer programming at UC Davis and San Diego State University. Also National Director for Water Resources at PBS&J, which is now Atkins, got bought out by Atkins, and HDR. So here's the agenda. We're going to talk about positioning yourself or your team as an ideal selection, research before the interview, observing the interview location, proper etiquette, introduction etiquette, strategic layout in terms of where you sit, managing the time and flow of the interview, handle the questions and answer sessions, answering some tough questions, and I'll give you some example questions, how to elegantly end the interview instead of just abruptly stopping with possibly a sour taste in their mouth. Also following up activities that you should also always pursue, and what not to do in the interview. Now, the agenda is primarily geared to winning interviews, that is related to projects. So you've been shortlisted, 3 or 5 of you are being interviewed, your teams, and you're in there in front of an interview team. Now, but a lot of this information can be applied to other types of interviews, such as, let's say, interviewing for a new job, or possibly interviewing for a promotion. So think of all these nuggets that might be coming out that you can apply to those situations. And about 70–80% of this material, it could be applicable to those kind of situations. So you want to position your team as the ideal selection. So you may be the ideal team, but you got to convince the people that you are the ideal team. And so that's why we go to this interview part, because they've seen your qualifications, gone through it, shared it with all the interview team members, and then come up with an idea of who they would like to have as the selection. However, they're giving you one more shot to put your foot in front of all the other people and be front and center your team selection right here in the front of them. Yes, there are other potential companies on the side, and they may be good too. However, you've got to convince the selection entity to see you as the ideal selection. So this is what this is all about. So there's 5 major components that the company or entity is looking for during a selection. So this bunch of this information, this major components, could be part of the submitted proposal that you did before the interview that got you shortlisted. First thing is they want to look at your education, your certifications. Certifications, especially if you have the same as the interviewers. So look for those certifications, education that kind of goes hand in hand with the people that are interviewing you. So highlight those things and those, especially those certifications that the interviews can get an affinity to in terms of your qualifications versus their qualifications. Also, they're interested in relevant project experience, project accomplishments. And here, we just don't put project accomplishments. We built this for $350 million and it resulted in this. You got to add some added things to it, that like what was so innovative about that project? What's so unique about that project? You know, did you have some good cost reductions that were part of that project that you need to highlight? Instead of just saying, we did this, we did this, we did this, we did this. Also highlight, was it timely? That is, was it finished on time? And then another thing I always like to harp upon is the promotion of the complete project. And what we mean is that, okay, I did this project for these people. And then as part of it, we submitted to, let's say, AWRA or some organization that's applicable for an award, project award. So what we are emphasizing to the people that what? We are going to what? We are going to promote your completed project to show and brag about how great you guys are if you select us. So work on getting those projects that you know that you help promote. And if you haven't done it, start doing that right away on your other projects. So you can brag about, okay, you know, this project we did this. We also then forward it to for a newspaper article or maybe a presentation at a local professional society section. And what we did is we promoted that to the other people, telling how wonderful the project was. And as a result, hopefully, we got some project awards. So if you haven't gotten projects that include this type of stuff, I would seriously consider starting that right away. So the interviews are also interested in your individual skills and knowledge of the required subject matters. That's you, not just your company or your team, but you, because you, if you are the PM, project manager, or the leader of this thing, what you need to do is what? Show that you have these individual skills that are required for this project. Also, the personal and professional attributes. That is, are you enthusiastic about your work, or are you just you know, do you have ethics related to it? Are you caring about the project? They want to know, do you care about my project? That's what the interviewer is thinking. Do you care about it? Are you going to be enthusiastic in terms of working on my project with me? Because I'm enthusiastic, that is, I'm the interviewer. I'm enthusiastic. Also, are you ethical? And people are very interested in the ethical part of it nowadays with all that shenanigans going on related to ethics and related to any professional society, or excuse me, professional entity. So let's look at the types and combinations of interviews, and you should prepare accordingly once you find out these types. But what we're going to go through within this presentation is the traditional. So here's the traditional interviews. Ask a series of questions which typically have straightforward answers. That's the type of interview after you've made your presentation. There's behavioral. So the interviews may ask questions related to past performance regarding specific competencies, such as teamwork. So they're asking about behavior. And then there's a situation. They'll ask you based upon hypothetical situations. Then there's stress. All right, interviews ask questions or act in a deliberate way to see how the team handles stress. So they'll provoke you. And then there's a group or panel, usually 3 or more interviews, ask the question to how you fit into determine how you fit into their requirements. Then there's also the video conference, allows people from different locations to interview without traveling. And then within that video conference, they may try these other types of descriptions that we're talking about. So find out exactly what kind of project are you going to, what kind of interview you're going to do for this project, and then tailor your presentation using the material that we're presenting here, and work on it. And so so these are the various types and combinations of interviews, and you got to be realizing that you should be able to handle any one of these as they come, because sometimes you don't know what kind of an interview is this going to be. So this is the additional things they look for in you and your team is grace under stress and duress. They want to make sure that if there's some unusual things that came about during the course of the project? Can you handle that? And can you work through those situations that might delay other people that are of lesser stature? Also, common sense, basic common sense and intelligence, obviously. Do you have compassion for the project and your work product? They want to make sure that you are hardworking. Are you ambitious and proactive? Do you let things happen to you, or do you go and prevent things from happening to you? If a high-profile project, public speaking capabilities, they're interested in that. So let's say it's a very high visible public project, and they want to make sure that the public is aware of what's going on throughout the project and also aware of what the end products are in relationship to their activities. So if that's the case, if you're the PM, project manager, they want to also make sure that you can speak intelligently and confidently in front of that public. So that's what you need to do if you're the PM, is find out, okay, is there a possibility that I may have to speak on the project in front of maybe a TV interview or or some sort of an activity that the public is invited. If that's the case, and you know that's going to be the situation, you harp upon that during that interview, saying that, I will be the PM, and I let you know that I've had experience in public speaking. Maybe you took Toastmasters, or you can give examples of where you did an interview or things of this sort. So highlight those public speaking capabilities if you know that's going to be possibly a requirement for this project you're seeking. So do some research before the interview. First, you should find out, who are you seeking? Know the names and pronounce them right. What I sometimes do is call the receptionist and ask how to pronounce the names. And then nowadays, we don't have just very common names like Jones and whatever. We have other complication names from other ethnicities. And you don't want to go in there and not know how to pronounce the interviewer's names. And so know the names and learn how to pronounce them right. So what I do is like call the receptionist and ask how to pronounce the names. So that's very vital. And I'm sure a lot of you that have very different names, different sounding names, kind of get irked if someone introduces themselves and calls you by a name that's undistinguishable from your real name. And so, but if you will be surely impressed if they can do and know exactly how to pronounce your name. So that's what I'm saying you need to do here. Go find out if it's a very exotic name, find out how to pronounce them. So what are the interviewer's function, job, or position in the entity? What you know is each of those interviewers, okay, this one is the head of engineering, this one's head of HR, this one is one of their consultants, or this person may be head of a different department. So find out what their job functions are and what their position within the entity. Are they vice president? Are they department head? Things of this sort. So this gives you a feel of when they give you a question, you know where they're coming from. So what will they likely ask? People like to discuss what they're working on or what they've been doing recently. So what I do is if I know who is going to be on the interview team, I research their name. Excuse me. I'll research their name. And what I'll do is then find out what they've been doing lately. And so that's probably what they're going to ask about, is something that they've been doing lately, because mentally it's right there in the back of their mind because they just finished it or actually working on it. So if I know that project or that activity that they are working on, I have a good idea. They're probably going to be asking me a question about that, or that's one of their interests. So if I know that's going to be one of their interests, what I'll do is I'll make sure that I weave that into my presentation. So again, more research before the interview. Know the entity. When and how did it start? What does it do? Because they may be doing things that that not necessarily related to what you are going after, but you should be aware of those peripheral stuff that the entity does. What have they done recently? Again, just like you want to find out about the interviewers, what they've been doing recently, do the same thing for the entity or the company itself. Find out who's in charge. Get a good feel of the org chart, the organizational chart. So what are their latest projects, especially like the ones you're seeking? So get on their website and browse through, because they'll have a section, maybe projects or ongoing work or what have you. I go onto their website and look at what they're doing and get a feel of, okay, they may be asking me questions related to what they're doing. And so, especially again, the ones that you're similar to what you're seeking. So do that research before you do that. So even though you may know that entity, you've worked with them before, you may have new stuff. They may have posted new projects on there that you may not be aware of, or maybe a little shuffling of the people that are there. So this can be some of the things you've learned can be part of the formal submittal or intro to the interview per below. Like for instance, let's say you're going after a flood control district, and I'm doing my area is water resources. So I work with flood control districts. So I'll get on their website and I find out something that's their 50th anniversary for serving. So what I'll do is either part of the formal submittal or as part of the interview. I'll say, as the district celebrates its 50th year serving the county. So I'll point this out to them. Or we congratulate the district for winning the best project from AWRA or whoever. So what you want to do is show that you are aware of what they're doing and what they've done lately, especially. Here's a little research I did before. I go up to UDFCD, which is Flood Control District of urban Denver area. I live in Colorado. And so what I do is I look through their services, make sure there's nothing different from what I already know on their website. And then I said, oh, look, they got a project here. And here's one they did for Boulder, Colorado for a fire. And so I read up on it. And you can see then that the Urban Drainage and Flood Control District was a participant of this project. And so what I do is I read up on it. All right, so what they've been doing, and I weave that into the conversation. I may say somewhere in saying, okay, well, I hope that study you guys are doing on that 4 Mile fire in Boulder is working out for you guys, or something like that. And then it's, oh, well, he knows what we're doing. And so again, what you want to do is point out that you know about that organization. Also, before the interview, here's one I use: examine the social media page for information on the interview team. I'll let you know how to use this. So here I pulled me. I'm in LinkedIn, and so I put in information here about to do a search on myself, and you can see that I got some information there, and a little bit about my education, my dissertation topic, and things of this sort. So you can do the same thing for the interview team that are going to be interviewing you. And you say, well, isn't that kind of intrusive? Well, what I say is, if they didn't want you to know this information, why would they make it public? Why would they put it in something like LinkedIn if they were not proud of it, or they didn't want other people to know about their life or their profession? So I have no compunctions of going in social media and getting this kind of information and have that in the back of my mind. I can pull it forward in the later part of the interview, and that's why I say I will show you later how to use this kind of information. So as part of the title, if you recall, we're talking about ethical implications of doing these interviews, and here's where I'm going to throw that at you right now. Constructing an ethical team. Your team should be comprised of competent and ethical professions. That seems kind of evident, but I've seen too many times that this is not true. And here's some of the reasons. You should always make sure your team, especially your sub-consultants, have been thoroughly vetted before they are part of your team. You should always make sure your team, right, that's you, your company, as well as your consultants, been thoroughly vetted. So what I do is that if I'm going to have, let's say I'm the prime and I'm going to have these subs, what I want to make sure is I'm going to call my friends and acquaintances, associates, and find out about that team member that's going to be a part of my team, and say, well, what do you guys think of them? Are they good? Are they ethical? And that's what I ask. So it's unethical to include people and entities that you know that are not competent to do the work that they have been assigned, regardless of the reasons, such as meeting participation goals. And sometimes we're going after governmental work that has participation goals. Let's say so many MBEs, so many veteran-owned businesses, so many disabled veteran-owned businesses, so many from historically disadvantaged entities. So what we want to do is fulfill some of those requirements, but sometimes we can't. And so what we do is sometimes start scratching to the bottom of the barrel for that, but that also reflects on your whole team. So make sure they're vetted. That means you have thoroughly gone over their requirements and what have you, and gone through your network to find out if they're good at what they do and they're also ethical. So in turn, the people selected for certain assignments should not accept assignments if they know they're not competent to perform the work. That means, all right, you've got this entity, let's say service disabled veteran-owned business, which was required by 3% of my goals, my participation goals, and I find this certain job. Well, you can't just arbitrarily do that. What you need to do is say, and they should not accept a job that they're not competent with. Or they're not competent for. So we got to make sure that we have an ethical team in these regards. For instance, the National Society of Professional Engineering Code of Ethics for Engineers in this section says engineers shall undertake assignments only when qualified by education or experience in the specific technical fields involved. So not only the entity being assigned a certain job part, but also you as a prime assigning that part to that entity. So it goes both ways. You should not assign it to them, or they should not accept it if there is no competency in relationship to that topic. So another thing to kind of a CYA or protect your butt, what I suggest is that if you're a prime and you're trying to get a sub involved, I would propose a letter that you compose, or you ask them to compose to you, saying that specifically that the work that let's say you're the prime and you're giving it to the sub. Say, thank you for joining our team. I just want to confirm that you have accepted this assignment as part of this presentation, and that you are competent to perform these assignments, and please sign and return back this document. So this kind of covers you in case something goes bad, and they'll say, well, you as the prime knowingly added this sub-consultants to do this work that were there not qualified. But what you say is, well, look, I got this letter. They're saying that they themselves say they're qualified. I did my due diligence and just found the same. And so that covers me because I have to, depend upon the honesty of these people that are saying they can do the work. So continue crafting an honest submittal. Example of an unethical dilemma regarding interviews. Okay, this is out of my ethics presentation. So Jane used to work for Harold, but left for another company under pleasant circumstances. Just a little hypothetical situation here. Harold's company has invited Jane's company to be a sub-consultant in pursuit of a larger project, and they're going to put a submittal together, and they're also going to do the interview if they're shortlisted. All right, in the process of putting the proposal together, Jane noticed that Harold has taken credit for work that Jane did when she was with Harold's company. So what should she do? If she knows that she, as a sub to Harold's company, finds that Harold's been taking credit for what the stuff that Jane had done when she was working for Harold, and now Jane's a sub-consultant. So he's taking credit for work. So we got a couple dilemmas. First is that Harold may be lying in the proposal, and then also he may be taking credit for work that implies certain competency that he may not be competent for. And Jane is the one that's the competent one. So we violated several things in relationship to ethics. So let's go over them. First, should Harold's supervisor, should she, that is Jane, tell Harold's supervisor about the issue? Should she tell her boss or report him to the relevant board of registration? She should just be quiet since the prime contractor calls the shots. She should talk to Harold, that's the person that was taking credit for her work, and persuade him to change the proposal. So what would you do? And I'm not going to tell you which is the proper one. In my ethics class, I do teach about, what I would suggest amongst these 4 answers. But what would you do, right? And imagine yourself, you are the presentation, if the presented situation was valid, would you do the ethical thing, even though it may disrupt the submittal so late in the game? So let's say right before we have the submittal, this thing came up. What would you do, your prime? Would you sacrifice some of your ethics and just take things as they are? And what should Jane do? What if you got that package given, you did nothing? Jane just said, I'm not going to be part of this. And then you have to change your proposal to exclude her, and then it's just right before the deadline of the submittal. So think of this. So if you remember that if you had that letter in front of you that you asked them to sign, that is the sub, this may have gone away by then. But this is an example of crafting an honest submittal. Too many times submittals are in there that are not accurate, that are not ethical, and are not competent. And so this is, I just want to present this kind of information out to you when you do these type of interviews. So, excuse me. Also, so the code of ethics also says this: shall not falsify their qualification, that is the entities, or permit misrepresentation of their associates' qualifications. So it's not they must not misrepresent their own qualifications or those of the associates. They shall not misrepresent or exaggerate their responsibility for the subject matter of prior. So then you can see that the Harold, by taking credit for Jane's accomplishments, is misrepresenting and exaggerating the competency. And brochures or other presentations, this presentation could be the submittal for going after the job, incident to the solicitation of employment, which, remember, we're going after work, shall not misrepresent pertinent facts concerning employers, employees, associates, joint ventures, or past accomplishments. So there it is, right in front of you, that what Harold is doing, if it is true, it violates 2 sections of the codes. So this means that you are unethical if you knowingly allow misrepresentation of not just your own team, but also your subconsultants or associates, it says up here, in the interview itself. So just remember that. And also, if another company that might, if you get the job, may have a heartburn about it, and they can ask for your submittal as long as it doesn't contain, secrets or company privacy stuff. They can ask for that to get an idea, and they can see, well, what are you guys? You misrepresented what you're capable to do, or your sub-consultants themselves. So again, if the previous scenario is valid, that means Jay truly did the work, and Harold took credit that he should not. You should act accordingly. So now let's get back to the interview itself. Now we got to observe the interview location environment. If you know the project's coming out and it's before the request for proposal or the RFP is released, go to their office to meet them. And once the RFP is out, it's very unlikely you're able to visit the people and discuss some of the stuff related to that project. So get to know the person, the staff, even receptionists and clerical, if by first name if possible, and reach them back to them in the conversation. Now, I do this so that they get to know me, because these people, the receptionists, clerical staff, they're in daily conversation with the members of the interview team. And so if you talk to them by first name, you'll make an impression on them, and when they're in the conversation with the interviews, maybe after your interview or in between, then they'll say, well, these people are nice people. They acknowledge my staff, my receptionists, and things of this sort. So again, if you can get in there before the RFP comes out. So look, when you're at that location, let's say you know that's coming out, but it hasn't been officially come out. That is the RFP. So you got an opportunity to visit them. All right. If it's the first time you've been there, what you need to do is look at the things on their walls to get an insight of the entity, such as past projects, awards, who are licensed, certificates of appreciations from, let's say, charities, school funding raising, and try to find some commonality between you, your company, and that entity based upon what you see on the walls. It may be that they participate in a charity that your company does, or you personally do it. So put that in the back of your mind, because then that gives you an idea. We got something in common. So maybe they do school funding for this high school that your child goes to. Great, keep that in mind. All right, and we'll talk about how to use that later on. So also the past project awards, to get a feel of what they have been doing in the time. And a lot of this you probably got as part of your due diligence before the interview that I talked about, going online and things of this sort. But look for things, because what it is that they are proud of these accomplishments, and that's why they have them on the wall. If they were not proud of them, they would not have them on the wall. So go to the office of the lead interviewer if you can, and find out if you know who he or she is. All right, so you want to go there. So once you're there, look at the desktop and walls. We'll discuss how to use these observations later on, but look for trophies, memorabilia, trinkets, etc. Let's say they have a picture of a family member doing specific things. Let's say they have a son doing a baseball stance with a baseball helmet. Okay, that tells you that that person has a son that is active in baseball. So you keep that in the back of your mind. They may have pets. You might have a pet that's a Rottweiler, and you have a Rottweiler. So it's something in common that you can use later on. There may be pictures of certain location. Maybe they have a picture of them in front of Machu Picchu in front. Okay, great. Maybe you went there too, or that's one of your places you'd like to go. So you keep that in the back of your mind, and we can use that later on in the aftermath of the interview itself. Look for diplomas and certificates. Note the schools attended, entities given the certificate, and look for the same items as you do that you get on the company walls, right? Because it may be that the diploma shows they went to a college that maybe your father went to. Okay, great. Or they got a certificate in certain management thing, of which maybe you have gone to that same school or a certificate, or gone through that training session. So just look for commonalities with the people. So when you're there, ask the people about their projects and what they're working on. Nobody likes to talk more about themselves than about their project and what they're working on. If they're proud people and proud of their profession, they're also proud of their projects that they're working on. Find out what they are, and then you can talk about their favorite things, such as their project. Observe the dress code of those that will do the interview. From what you see, all the teams should dress one level up. So what you want to do is make sure that your team, and you tell this ahead of time before you go and walk into the actual interview, is, look, I saw these guys. They're all have a jacket, a good dress clothes. Some of them have a tie, some of them don't. So, okay, what I want is all of you guys want to do one up. That is one dress level up. So everyone here is going to wear a suit and tie, and the ladies in the interview do appropriate level also. So that's what we want to do now. And the reason I do this is, let's say you go to entity and they're very informal. They got jeans on, they got flannel shirts, things of that sort, which just shows a level of laxity that they have adopted in terms of their dress code. So what you need to do is go one level up. So you shouldn't come in with a suit and tie. They would kind of feel uncomfortable in front of you if they're dressed in, let's say, slacks and jeans and open collar and things of this sort, or you come in with a suit and tie. So what you want to do is maybe dress casual, maybe a sports coat, maybe just a dress slacks and a dress shirt, but maybe no ties and things. So you want to go one level higher than that, but not two, not three levels higher. So observe that dress code. So continuing observing the interview locations, ask to see the interview location if you can. Check out the layout and make sure the PM, head of your team, will be centered at the head of the, at the side of the lead interview, but not at the head of the table. So here's an example layout here, and I'll refer to this whenever we go. What you want to do, and what they'll interview do is they'll have the interview person head right there probably. And so don't sit over here if you're the lead, or don't sit over there. You want to sit right opposite to them, right here. All right. So then you make sure that the other people sit accordingly, and I'll talk about that layout here. But don't sit at the head if they're sitting here. If they're sitting here, don't. If you're sitting here, if they're sitting here, don't sit over here. Sit to the sides still. Yes, you have to crank your head a little bit, but usually they'll sit right there at the side, right in the center of the side. That is the head person. All right. Find locations for displays so the interviews can see without having to turn their chairs. Okay, let's say the interview team is sitting right there looking at you, and here's your team. Okay, make sure if you have poster boards or anything like that, that you don't sit there behind them. Make sure it's behind you or to the side. So the best is not behind you, but to the side, to the left side or to the right side of your team, but not behind you unless there's circumstances that require that. But off to the side here. So go ahead and put those displays there. And so sometimes there can be PowerPoints, but sometimes you'll have some additional promotion material that may not be on the PowerPoint. So make sure you put them to the side and not to behind them. So make sure the team members that are not at the table are not behind the interviewers. Let's say you have 6 people in your interview team there, and they go sit. So make sure they don't sit. See these chairs behind the interview people? Make sure they don't sit there, because if they ever have to engage, that means these people will have to turn around to see them. So make sure they don't sit there. Make sure they're sitting behind you, your overflow interview people. If you have overflow and there's chairs like that, don't worry about just take a command and grab those chairs and move them behind you. So don't be shy to do that. Take charge. So let's continue on how do we sit. The PM of the project should enter first, introduce herself to all the interviewers. So what I'm saying is, don't let the people wander into the interview team, place. Have everybody gather outside, either in the reception area or whatever, or outside the room, and nobody goes in, and then the PM goes in first. Introduce himself or herself to all the interviews one at a time, almost like a reception line. And then what you want to do is have the others follow you accordingly and do the same thing, so that every member of your team has shaken hands or introduced themselves to every member of the interview team. And don't sit down yet, because there's a specific way that you want people to sit. And also, nobody sits down before the head interviewer does, or before you if you're the PM. Okay? So what you want to do in that kind of reception line is have a warm, firm handshakes. Don't do crushy ones or wet dead fish. We don't want to give them a wet dead fish handshake. Look them in the eye as you shake hands and smile. And what I sometimes do is I actually have my subs and my team shake hands with me. You know, maybe not right before the interview, but sometimes you're the process of putting everything together. And I will actually critique their handshake. So, wow, you really hurt my hand. I hope you don't do that to the interviewers. Or, well, you know, that was kind of a weak handshake. Could you kind of firm it up? And you know, you're in charge as the PM. So don't be embarrassed by something like that. And the people, I think, will be appreciative of this critique, especially if they've been doing it all their lives to find out they've been given a bad impression to everybody. So again, look them in the eye as you shake, and then also smile. So notice how they introduce themselves, which is first name. Do they call themselves doctor? Or do they call them, hi, I'm David Williams? Or do they say, hi, I'm Dr. David Williams? So find out how they introduce themselves, because that's usually the way they want you to address them. So some people get kind of finicky about that. They like to be called doctor. Me, I don't care. You can just call me David. But the thing is, they get kind of finicky in a professional atmosphere. So they introduce themselves as Dr. So-and-so, fine. You address them as Dr. So-and-so throughout the whole interview. So make sure you address them that way in the interview. Repeat their names to make sure you got it right, and to help remember. Hi, I'm Dr. David Williams. Hi, Dr. Williams. How are you doing today? All right, instead of just say hi. That burns it into your memory. Okay. So if one introduces themselves as Thomas, don't call him Tom. If she introduces herself as Catherine, do not call her Kathy, unless they specifically tell you. Okay. So if they the way to do that is they say, hi, I'm Catherine so-and-so. I say, well, hi, Catherine, how are you doing? Then they'll say, oh, please call me Kathy. Or they may say nothing, then you keep calling that person Catherine, all right? I always introduce myself as David. I hate Dave. And anybody calling me that while being interviewed has a low chance of getting my vote. So again, make sure you get their name right. All right, collecting, exchanging business cards if possible. Enter with yours in your short pocket or inside coat pocket. Don't have it hidden in your wallet. A lot of people have their business cards in their wallet, and it's bulging, whatever. So you don't want to have to take the time to get it out and give them a crummy, scuffed up business card. You want a fresh business card. So what I do is I put it in. If I'm wearing a jacket, I put it in the inside pocket of my jacket. My suit jacket or my sports coat or whatever it is. I make it readily available such that all I have to do is reach in there and get it, so I know exactly where it is, and I give them a fresh one. When seated, place them in front of the PM in the order of the interview's sitting positions. So that is these business cards. Place them in front of the order of the interview's sitting. So what I'm saying is, okay, Joe is the far left of me. Opposite me, so I'm going to put his card on the far left of me, so that it's in position. The second guy over is Jill. Fine, I got her business card, and I'm putting it to the right of the previous one. So that's what you want to do. Go all the way across, and it looks kind of funky, yes, and people will notice that. But look, I'd rather have them say, why is David doing that? Well, then when I call them by their first name and I get everybody's first name right, or their full name right, then they say, now I see that. That's a clever guy. So what you want to do, again, is get their business cards, if you can, and place them in order of their seating. If a card or two is missing, like they say, oh, I forgot mine, take out your own business card and put the names on the back and put it in proper position. So let's say you have a business card that has blank in the back. So what you want to do is, as soon as you can remember, put that person's name on the back of your business card. Remember, you have it handy, all right? Take your business card out and put their name on it and put it in position in front of you. Maybe have your assistant PM do this for you, because they say, okay, hey, Joe, just let you know that I missed that person's name, or I got that person's name, but I didn't get his card. So could you remember that and make sure that you put it on the back of your business card, my business card, and put it in front of me in the proper order? So don't sit down yet. That is the whole team until the head interviewer directs you to. So this shows that you are organized and show respect for that interview team. And so obviously, you know that they may be from a different culture than you have been, and they may not like anybody to have their heads higher than them. You never know. So I'm going to play it safe. What I'm going to do is tell everybody in my interview team to stand in the position where they've been ordered to stand. And then what'll happen is that the head interviewer will say, oh, please sit down. That's the cue. So that means you're showing respect for that team, that is the interview team, respect for everybody, and then everyone seats together as a team. You place members of the PM's company to the PM's right and the subs to your left. So what I want to do is I'm sitting in the center, and my team is going to be on the right. The subs are going to be on my left, and there's a reason why. Rearrange is necessary to keep out. So you don't want 5 people on the right and 1 people on the left. So rearrange if you need to. So to the interviewer's perspective, looking from left to right, because they're opposite you, which is their natural way, they look from left to right and they see your team first. Then they see you, and then they see your subs. And that's the order of importance, right? Because your team should be the most important and the subs are next. And so that's why I like to keep them in that way. And I tell them ahead of time, that is my team. I want you to sit in this order. So again, if no business cards are exchanged, I'll have the assistant PM write the names of the interviews on a piece of paper or back of a business card, my business card, and put them accordingly, discreetly in front of me. So the PM should introduce the team members as soon as seated. So your company first, going from your right to left. Remember, you put your people to the right, which is left to right from their perspective. Those that may not be actively may actively participate in the interview or not at the table, and you do them last. In the intro, what you want to do is state their company, how they fit into the project hierarchy. That is, so for instance, this is Kathy with CDM, and she'll be the lead for hydrology. So that's how you introduce yourself, and they'll just acknowledge, say, hi, Kathy, hi, Clay. All right. And so don't specifically apologize for a key person not being there, regardless of the situation. Now, this is kind of a my thing, all right, and maybe controversial. So if you feel like you need to apologize, fine, go ahead. But I find it just likely to just kind of ignore it. And what I would do is just say, if they're part of introduction, let's say if an org chart or something like that, I say, so-and-so unfortunately cannot be here, and just leave it that way. So they may think that person did not feel that the interview was not important enough for you to be there, but be ready to answer if asked specifically why they're there, because you don't want them to think, oh, I guess his golf appointment is more important than coming into this interview. So you don't want that kind of a thought. But again, if asked, be ready to answer, and it better be a darn good reason. So how do we manage the flow and timing of the interview? Look for clocks on the wall to help you manage the time. So look for on the wall. Hopefully, it's behind the interviewers. If no clock can be discreetly averted, let's say the clock is behind you. Well, you don't want to, look at the clock and look behind you. So consider taking your watch off, or maybe take out your muted cell phone, smartphone, and place it in front of you. Better yet, in front of the assistant PM, but you can still see it. So I have no compunction of taking my watch off so I can see it discreetly, because nothing more irritating than being distracted by looking at the time. It means that you aren't managing the time very well if you have to look at it. But if you can discreetly look at the time, that's the best thing for you. So obviously it's distracting if you keep looking at your wrist to check the time right in the middle of a presentation and they're watching you. So if you can just discreetly look around, maybe looking at people's faces, but then glance over to the watch that's in front of you or on the wall, that is a lot better than looking at your wristwatch. All right, decide ahead if all stand or sit for their portion of the presentation. So if standing, make sure to take all the large items from the project so they don't make any noise or are visually distracting, because as you're getting up and down, things may make a distracting sound, such as keys, coins, phones, lunch, etc. So you don't want them to be distracting. Take them out, put them in your jacket if you need. If a PowerPoint presentation is used, have at least 2 laser points available in your coat pocket. One is your backup. So one a malfunction, and that kind of ruins your timing of your presentation. Avoid having to finger point to presentation material if you can. Also eliminates going to the screen and back, which wastes time. So what you do is, again, have the I have the people stand up, use the PowerPoint. All right, but I don't usually let them go up to the screen or back. I just have them to talk from their position, because it takes time to go up there and back, and it can be distracting and it wastes time. Pass the pointer, PowerPoint, excuse me, the laser pointer to the presenters when it's their turn. So that shows teamwork, and they know exactly who is next. Establish a discrete signal or sound to let presenters know when they're getting near the end of their allotted time. So this, maybe it's something like scratch your ear, or scratch your head, or put your hand up to your chin, or something like that, in a non-aggressive and very nonchalant way, and they establish it. And one of the reasons that I like the people to stand is they can be seen and heard by both the interview and the project team, right? And then they also see the secret signal, all right? So if they're sitting down and they're on the other end of the table and they're sitting down, so you have to nod your head back, forward and backwards to see their head, and they have to do the same. But if they're standing up, they'll see you, and they can see that discrete signal. So let's talk about handling the question and answer session. All questions go through the PM, and the PM redirects to the proper person if the PM is not handling it. So the way I like it is no one speaks unless directed to or recognized by the PM. That shows leadership, shows that the leadership is all in one person, the PM, and that PM is kind of an orchestrator, is the director. Okay, is the person that coordinates all the things, and this is demonstrated by making sure all the questions go through the PM. They want to ask, have them address the PM to ask that somebody on your team says, Jim, may I add to that answer? So here's the way I see it. A question is asked, the question is given to you as the PM. Then the PM says, okay, well, that question is best handled by so-and-so. Then you look to that person, and that person, then what they know is that the interview team knows who's answering the question because you directed to. That is going to be handled by Jim. And you look to Jim, could you answer that? All right, so they know, oh, it's Jim. They look down on their org chart. Okay, Jim, who is part of this, who's the head of that, is answering that question. Oh, the appropriate person. So, and doing so, and you tell this again to your team before you get into that interview, that this is the way. If they ask a question, it goes through me. I will give it out to them who I think is appropriate. Nothing worse than some aggressive person on your team that may not be as competent to answer the question as another member of your team. Answer the question in a half-hearted way or incomplete way when the appropriate person didn't have a chance to jump in and say and give the proper answer. All right. Now, this doesn't mean that other members can't add to the question. That's when I say, Jim, when they say, Jim, may I add to that answer? That's only after the primary person that's going to answer the question has fully answered it. And someone might say, oh, darn, they missed a certain point. Then instead of just jumping into it, because that point may not be what I want to have pointed out, they'll ask me, say, David, can I add to Jim's question? All right, so then that keeps it in order, and then hopefully the answer is, the question is thoroughly answered. Listen to the inquired question before you begin to answer the question. Don't interrupt the questioner in your haste and eagerness to answer. So wait till they're completely finished and there's like a 1 or 2 moments of silence after the question is done. That means they have thoroughly asked the question. All right, don't jump in and they say step on their lines, right, when they're not finished, because they may have another part of that question that you have not heard yet. Credit the person for asking the question. You may say something like, you raised an interesting point, or glad you asked that question. Don't do this too often. I've seen it where people say, that's a very good question to every question that comes out. My gosh, that's a terrible terrible, annoying thing to do. So again, don't say, that's a good question all the time. Too appeasing, used too often, and implies the other questions are not as good. So yes, you can use, that's a good question, but maybe once and maybe twice throughout the Q&A session. Mix it up by using some of these other things that I have pointed out. So maybe you have rehearsed like 4 or 5 of them ready to answer, ready to use as a kind of an intro before you answer the question, but also credit the person for asking the question. And that makes them feel good. It says, oh, hey, they like my question. Hey, that shows they're pretty smart, that they know to ask the proper question. Also, if you're not sure you understood the question, paraphrase it back to the questioner and ask if you have it right. Right? No, nothing worse than answer a question that's answered the wrong question. So if you're quite unsure, if you're not quite sure of the question, say, no, Mr. Doolittle, are you asking this, and this? And they'll nod their heads. Okay, well, I just want to make sure before I answer that I had that question correct. Pause, let's say about 3 seconds, and allow yourself time to evaluate the question. This shows you're being thoughtful of their question. So don't just jump right in after it. I like to have like 2 to 3 seconds, and that gives me an idea of, okay, who should be answering this? Should I be answering this? Did I get that question correctly? That gives you those precious seconds to help you understand exactly what is the question. And also they say, oh, they're thinking about my question, so they feel a little bit proud of that question they asked. Before going to the next question, ask the questioner a question, such as, does that answer your question? Is that the kind of information you were looking for? Does that explain why we chose to do it this certain way? So again, because nothing worse again than, let's say, you have answered in a half-assed way this question. And what happened was that then the interviewer, the head interviewer, goes to the next question, and the person, hold it, that's not the full answer, or that's not the answer that I was looking for, but they're too shy to interrupt the head interviewer. So if this gives them that opportunity, so after every question, say, does that answer your question? Is that the kind of information you're looking for? So this gives them an opportunity again to say no, ask you to elaborate, and allow them to clarify their question. So David, you didn't quite get that right. Here's what I was looking for. And so, okay, great, thank you. Thank you for letting me know, instead of letting me just write and then just mark on their answer sheet or their evaluation sheet that only gave me half credit for answering that question. So don't leave a question with portions unanswered or even providing the wrong answer. They'll mark you as unresponsive. So continue on handling the question and answer session. When you reply to a question, direct your answer initially to the questioner and then to the other interviewers. Scan them as you answer, look back to the questioner as you finish your answer. Okay, remember, that question that that questioner asked, may not be only of interest to that questioner, but also to other members. And so you want to get them involved in the question and the answer itself. So that's when you look at them back and forth across it. So it's a bad thing to just stare at that one person thinking that's their question and they're the only one that they should be hearing the answer. No, the whole interview team should be listening to the answer and be interested in what your reply is. So look back and forth, and then come back to the questioner as you finish. That's when you say, after you finish this, and then you look at the same person, then you do that question again. I hope that answers your question. Be enthusiastic about answering all the questions. Right? Responding too quickly or enthusiastic, only questions you're most comfortable with will only bring attention to those questions you're not comfortable about. Because sometimes it's kind of like they smell fear. And they say, okay, they're answering that question kind of not too enthusiastically or not precisely, where they jump on this one. So what they'll do is they'll smell that fear, and they may come back to that original question that you did not answer very well and just hammer you for it, especially if they have an agenda. So again, try to make it even. Be enthusiastic for all of your answers for all of the questions. Remember to use that discrete signal if the answer by the others on your team gets too long. All right, and you put that in front of them. Look for opportunities to present the company's commitment to things such as ethics and principles, as well as what activities the company does to promote it. That is, do they do internal training? Send employees to seminars on ethics training, or maybe project management or anything like that, and promote the principles. Formal policies, etc. It may also be in the formal presentation part when you hand it in there. So take all opportunities in the answer, like, and we'll look at some of these example problems. But let's say, what is your management strategy, or what is your management way of handling things? Well, then you say, well, not only do I go through management school or things of this sort, but I practice what I preach. I also have my team members go through these things. Also, on an annual basis, we have people come from outside to make sure that our policies and procedures are okay, and then also gives us ethics training on an annual basis. Things like sort. Look for opportunities to present that kind of information in there, even though they may not specifically ask about them. But weave it into it if you can. Occasionally say the questioner's name with your answer. Again, any kind of answer. If it's a long 5-minute answer, maybe in between you put in that person's the questioner's first name or last name, or whichever is appropriate to use. So ask more things here. Ask your colleagues that are in the business but not pursuing the project to come up with some project-specific questions. If you guys are in a good order, they're part of your professional society, you give them a call and say, hey, I just got shortlisted to this entity. Have you guys ever worked with them? What do you think? What kind of questions do you think they'll be asking? So it says, if you know people that have been interviewed by the entity for another project, ask them about typical questions that were asked. Hopefully you're on a good basis with all these other engineering firms or whatever firms you are as part of your profession. If available, obtain an old checklist of questions and or evaluation sheets. Sometimes those are hard to get by, but I've occasionally come across them for other projects. Don't allow too much looking at each other for someone on the team to speak up or to answer a tough question. The PM should step in after about 3 seconds. So let's say you're directing the question to somebody and the person kind of looks like that, looking at each other as who, me or whatever, then you know that you probably directed it to the wrong person, and so redirect it to somebody else or step in yourself. Anticipate variations in the following questions. Rehearse with someone that's not on the interview team and get the opinions on your answer. So here's some typical questions. If you or the team do not know the answer, say something like, that's an interesting question that can be answered in many ways. Can you please elaborate or clarify it? So if you don't know the answer, you may be able to answer at least part of the questions from the clarification. So again, if it's not on these example questions that I have, a question, or you have not rehearsed it, say, well, that's an interesting question that can be answered in many ways. So I want to make sure that I answer it in the way that you would like to. So could you please clarify that question? So if another one would be, that question may have been best answered by James or Jane, but unfortunately she's not here. I'll try my best to answer, hoping to capture the essence of what James would say. So that may be an answer, but that's when you're putting up front that one of your key people was not there. And if they ask, well, why is not there with that person? Well, let them assume that's a serious reason that that person is not there, right? So let them do that, right? And so then if they ask, you say why, but let them guess on it, and you say, well, you're acknowledging that you're not the person to answer that question. But unfortunately, that person who is not here, but you are going to try because you've been working with this person you'll try to get this answer. You've been working with this person. So you can also ask to repeat the question to buy time to formulate yours or other team members' answers. So that's a tactic I use when I do expert witness. When it's something that I'm got thrown off on or don't know, I'll ask them to repeat it. Excuse me. And so I'll give you some time to start formulating my answer. It is with doing that asking time or ask them to clarify it, things like that, is more positive than dancing around the question or mumbled, I don't know. They'll respect your honesty that you didn't quite fully understand their question. So here's some sample questions. Why should we select your company? Tell us about your quality and assurance plan. How do you plan to handle a certain situation? Give an example of the problem with one of your projects and how you overcame it. What are the challenges on your last projects? How would you handle the loss of a key person? So what I would do if I were you is just write all these things down and work with your team and say, who is going to be the best one to answer these things? And I want you have to think in your mind a project, a sample project, when they say, what are the challenges of your last project? All right? So you already know right up front and you know what to say. So again, use these sample interview questions to get prepared for the Q&A. Here's some more. What's your approach to managing a project, or what is your management philosophy? What do you consider your team's significant strengths? If a technical or staff problem comes up, tell us the process you would use to handle it. If you encounter what you think is an unethical or a shady situation, how would you handle it? How will you keep us informed of your progress and keep us in the decision? So these are a compilation of a lot of the questions that I've been subjected to, and then also I use when I'm interviewing other people or other entities when I'm representing a entity that's looking for consultants. So how do you elegantly end the interview? I plan a 2-minute wrap up at the end of the Q&A. So you restate your point and end with a strong case, with a strong close. Say you want the project and thank them again. So here's some more things I want you to do. Use positive words and no contractions. I said, we know, not think, we can do the project. You don't want to sound wishy-washy. We are, not that we feel, that we are the best in the region. You will, not you'll, that's a contraction, get a great product. You will get a great project. Not you'll get a great project. It just sounds too wishy-washy. We want, not would like this project. Again, you want that project. So we want. So you don't say, we would sure like this project. No, we want this project, you guys. All right? So, eloquently ending the interview. At the end of the interview, try to have your team mingle with the interviewers before you leave the room. I try to get about 5 minutes to do this if it's not coming to your interview time. All right. What they normally do is they'll have, like, say, an hour presentation, an hour blocked off for each person or each entity, and they'll say you got 45 minutes to do your presentation because they want to do anything. They want to kind of relax and whatever on the last 15 minutes before the next presentation is. So I try to get at least 5 minutes. And what I tell my team to do is mingle with them as best you can, that is the interview team, and do some of those things that you observe. Like, Joe, I saw the picture of your daughter playing soccer. Hey, I played soccer in college. I do volunteer work, volunteer soccer refereeing for the youth league. So you're getting that bonding with the interview team after the formal part is theirs. Let's say you saw a degree on the wall and says, wow, my mom went to that school. She said it was great. Let's say an appreciation plaque that you saw on the wall or on the interviewer's table. Dr. Doolittle, your agency's appreciation plaque is from the same organization that my company participates in, maybe the Cancer Society or something of this sort. So what you want to do is get that familiarity because they feel better about people that they have commonality to. Shake hands as you leave and say their names if you can remember. Say, Dr. Doolittle, it was a pleasure making our presentation to you, and thanks for letting us come in and doing this. So again, say their name if you can remember. Again, you have those cards in front of you. Thank the receptionist and anyone who helped you in by first name if not possible, if you can remember. Again, you want to have that lasting last session with them. And as you leave, the reception say, well, maybe they'll escort you out, and you say goodbye to the receptionist by their first name. You say, Jane, or Miss So-and-so, depends. Say, Jane, thanks for helping us out and making us comfortable when we first entered here. And hopefully the interview team has followed you out to let you out, and they'll observe that, how you show respect to the receptionist or to the clerical staff or whoever was not actually part of the interview, but as part of their staff, that is the interview staff. Follow-up activities, write a thank you letter. Some entities do not allow contact with the interviews until the selection is made. Selected or not, still do the following as soon as when you can. All right, write a letter. If time is a factor, an email may be appropriate, but not recommended. Let's say they say, okay, we're going to make a selection within about a week. All right, then write a letter to them. Notice this, we're going to make a selection tomorrow. The letter won't get to them, so what you need to do is an email. So direct the sub-consultants to do the same thing how excited they are to be on the team. So when the person, when the interview team gets a letter from your prime and the subs saying thank you for the opportunity, they'll be impressed, saying that wow, these guys are together. So write clearly and precisely, write out on computer first and write out in longhand. If you have bad handwriting like me, print out on good paper with a company logo and hand sign in blue links so it doesn't look like a form letter. Send a copy to the subs with CC on the letter to the interview so that the interviewer, when they get the letter, seeing that you had CC'd this to your sub-consultant. So you guys are being presented as a team. I'm sending this thank you letter and I'm including my sub-consultants as part of this letter. And then you do the same thing. You ask the same things for your sub-consultants. Sub-consultants will write to the people, the interview team, and then they'll CC you. And they'll say in there, it says, I was excited, my company was excited to be a sub-consultant to so-and-so. And we'd like to thank you for having us and letting us make our presentation to your entity. Something like that. So it shows back and forth between the sub-consultants and the prime and just shows some good coordination. Again, addressed to a specific person, usually the head or the lead interview, but cite the others. So you just say, Mrs. Kilpatrick, I'd like to thank you and so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so for having us interview for this project, and just write the project down, something like that. So address to the specific person. Be sincere. This will build goodwill toward for the next project if you don't get it, and also possibly if in time before they make the selection that they get to see it, but just very rarely they'll actually see it before the selection. So what not to do in the interview. And we'll go over about 15, 20 minutes on this, but don't be desperate. Don't interview with a please hire me approach. Don't be desperate. Don't be too familiar with the interview. The other side on the interview may be a member of your professional society or Elks Club or something like that, but don't be too familiar with them. Bring energy and enthusiasm to the interview, but be professional. Don't overstep your place. Remember, you are trying to go after this work, so don't be chummy with the other people if you know them that well. Avoid any reference to age, race, religion, politics, or sexual orientation. That's obvious. So when you go through your rehearsals, make sure you don't say anything that could be possibly offensive. Don't be too gabby. Be concise and don't ramble. You may have the gift of gab, but that's not what you're there for. Don't be too gabby, be concise. And then also, when you do your rehearsals for this, have your team members say, hey, David, you're just rambling on. Let's get down to the specifics here. Don't be too cocky. Don't be too cocky. There's a fine balance between confidence, professionalism, and modesty. So don't have any false modesty. That's not good either. But again, don't be too cocky. Try to find that balance. Don't be in a rush. Don't appear to be in a rush to end the interview, such as looking at your watch during the Q&A, right? So don't be in a rush, like you have to hurry. Don't answer questions with a simple yes or no. Use the opportunity to elaborate on your strengths, right? And we talked about this earlier. It says, yes, we have a company Q&A plan. So they'll ask, do you have a company Q&A plan? But you say, yes, we do. But we also review with the PMs on an annual basis and have outside consultants to train us. So don't answer with a yes or no. Elaborate, use that kind of information to show what you are doing and extracurricular activities related to not just having everybody read the standard operating procedure of the company manual. We're actually doing active training. We maybe on a monthly basis have a lunch that we talk about issues and talk about the Q&A plan, things of the sort. So just look for those type of opportunities to do these type of things. Do not trash the competition. Emphasize the positive and don't trash the company. Even though you know the competitions are not very good or they flubbed a project or something like that, don't trash the competition. If they ask, well, they usually don't ask you about the competition. I mean, I've never been in a situation they ask you, well, so-and-so is also is part of this short list. So what do you think of them? I've never had that kind of a question asked me, but don't volunteer that. Even though you may hate them, oh my gosh, you may hate them, but don't trash them and don't say anything bad about them. Avoid mentioning working for another company or respond accordingly if directly asked. Don't say, well, when I was with so-and-so, we did this. Well, it may be that that company you just talked about that you did this wonderful stuff is the next one down the line that's going to be interviewed. So do not mention working for another company. Now, if you did it for a previous company, you don't want to pretend that you did it for the previous your current company. But if it's from a previous company, that's fine to say from a previous company, right? But don't say up front, if you can help it, just say that, oh, throughout my career, I've done this. I've done this, I've done this. So let them guess if it's for your company or for your previous companies. But don't say my previous company. It's okay if asked. Oh, okay, well, in my career, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. If they specifically ask you, well, what company did you do that? You have to fess up and tell them the truth. However, don't put that in their face that I did this for somebody else. Make sure you turn off your phone. And I know all of you have been in a conversation, in a meeting, or in a presentation, and phones go off. So can you imagine doing that in an interview? Oh my gosh, that's embarrassing to the interview. So what we want to do is make sure that all your phones are off. So what you do is outside the door, before you come in, you tell everybody, okay, everyone's phone's off. All your alarms off. Sometimes people will have an alarm, even though your phones may be on, let's say, airplane mode, but your alarms are still active, even the airplane modes. So what I would tell them is to turn it off. Don't put it in airplane mode. Turn it off, because they may have forgotten for an alarm to say that they got to go to the dentist after the presentation. Don't fidget. Don't fidget with items such as rings, watches, wringing your hands, popping knuckles. And I've seen this. I had a VP of a major company that would pop his knuckles when he got nervous. And it would be a pretty loud pop. And we're going through the interview in the QA session. He's sure he's popping knuckles. I said, oh my God. I had another VP from another pretty prominent engineering company that he did the presentation. He stood in front of the PowerPoint and pointed at certain things and played with his keys in his pockets while I was doing that. And I said, I can't believe that he's 20, 30 years in this business and doing something like that. So that's why I say at an earlier part of this presentation, make sure you take all those tempting things that you can play with and put them away somewhere. Maybe put them in your briefcase or put them in the car or something like that. All right. Hopefully it's not a value. If it's a value, then put it in your coat pocket or something of the sort. So again, when people get nervous, they start fidgeting, and people don't realize they're fidgeting. Don't chew gum, tobacco, breath mints unless just before. So make sure everybody has everything outside their mouth, like that, that are pinch of tobacco, no chewing gums or anything like that. So make sure that everybody has nothing in their mouth other than their tongue and their teeth. Don't slouch out that table. Sit upright and look alert. So some people, when they're doing the Q&A session, it's not their answer. If they're not questions for them to answer, they'll slouch back and kind of rest up. Well, no, I want everybody to sit upright and alert regardless of the question that's being asked throughout the whole presentation. Look alert. Don't fiddle looking at your phone or look at the walls or anything like that. I want everybody to be attentive. Don't appear disinterested when other team members are present or answering questions. Always, again, pay attention, just like that. Don't slouch at the table. Don't dominate the conversation, especially when the interviews are talking. Let them say what they want to say. And I said that before. Don't cut them off in their questioning, and so don't dominate the conversation. So get to the point, and don't overtalk the people that are talking, that is the interview people. Don't interrupt the questioners. Let them finish their question. And sometimes there'll be a two-part question and you don't realize it. That's why I always say that, does that answer your question? They say, oh, no, there's another part to that question. Thanks for asking. And then they'll give you that second part. So then let them finish their questions and then give them the opportunity to open up the dialogue for another question. Do not be late. Arrive about 15 minutes earlier, but not too early. All right, because that gets fidgety time. So about 15 minutes early gives you enough time to get there a little bit later if you're like caught in traffic or something like that. So arrive at least 15 minutes early, and sometimes maybe half an hour if you know there's some commutes that might be there. Also, we'll talk over the last minute stuff if you're there a little bit early. Don't disrespect the help. Be kind to the receptionist, the secretary, etc. And I've heard this about 2 or 3 times already about don't disrespect the help, because they'll provide feedback to the interviewers. For instance, for one interview, I interviewed with the receptionist. She was in college and was working, was the daughter of the head interviewer. So she was working for the company for a summer job because she was going through college. And I knew this from my research. I researched the person, found out the person had kids that were in college, and then I remembered their last name and her first name. And when I got there, I saw a family resemblance, and her first name was the first name of this guy's daughter that was going off to college. So I figured with the family resemblance, the same first name, she must be the daughter. And I really made sure that I had the right name, and I said again, "Hi, Jill." Hi, Jill. Or she'd say, "Hi, I'm David Williams." She'd say, "Hi, I'm Jill. Nice to meet you, Jill." And so again, it burned into my mind. And when I left, I did the same thing. I say, "Jill, thanks for being the first to welcome us here." And just go on that way. So opportunities rise ahead, and be prepared. So what I suggest is that you take all the key points that I have in here, and before you go into an interview, you talk to the people that are part of your interview team, and you go, this is, look, what I suggest is that you go to every point that David's presentation and tell me how you can help me do the presentation in terms of supporting to do things like things that I assign to the assistant project manager, things that that I want you to research as you're part of the Q&A answer. And then if you feel good about it, you let me know. And if that question comes up, I will make sure it gets direct to you. And we tell everybody else, do not touch this question unless you obviously the person missed a certain point. And so let the person that's been assigned to answer that question, answer that question, all right? So again, the important thing is do your background information. If you go there cold, you will definitely not show yourself well, your team well, and all that effort of putting the presentation together and rehearsing and putting the formal submittal in there will all go to waste. So I urge you to go through this presentation about a day or two before the interview itself, okay? And also, I gave you at the beginning my email address, so if you have any questions or even some suggestions on improvement of my presentation, I'm willing to look at this. So just let you know that I've been doing this for over 40 years, and using these techniques, I've been able to get, if I can get into the interview mode, I can get, my hit rate is a third to 50% success rate. That's what's when you have 4 to 5 people competing for the same job. I use some of this information to get job promotions and also for new interviews. Every new job I've interviewed, I've always gotten using these techniques. About half the time when I'm going for a promotion, I've gotten that promotion. I'm competing with 2 or 3 other people for that promotion. So these things that we talked about have been proven in the industry, and I've welcomed a lot of people that have had experience in doing interviews, and they agree with me wholeheartedly that most of the things I point out they adhere to also. But I was one of the first they saw where it actually put it down on paper and made it into a concise presentation. So with that, we are finished. I invite you again to email me with any suggestions for improvement or any questions. And I hope that you have a great interview if you got one coming up pretty soon. With that, I thank you. Bye.